Picture this. It is 1980. You are 10 years old. You step off the yellow school bus and walk up to a quiet house. You reach under your shirt, pulling out a brass key tied to a string around your neck, and you let yourself in. Nobody is there to ask how your day was, and nobody is there to make you an after-school snack. If a problem arises, you understand with absolute clarity that you are the one who has to solve it. You are alone. This was your normal. You did not realize it then, but you were raising yourself. You belonged to the forgotten middle child of generations, sandwiched quietly between the boomers and the millennials. Back then, you didn't have a formal psychological label. You were just a latchkey kid. You grew up in an era of massive upheaval. Your parents were navigating uncharted territory, including rising divorce rates by 1980. Divorce had reached an all-time high, with mothers entering the workforce. The traditional family structure was fundamentally changing. By the mid-1980s, approximately 7 million children were routinely coming home to unsupervised, empty houses. This was not a rare anomaly or an isolated incident. It was an absolute epidemic of childhood independence. So, what did raising yourself actually mean? It meant existing in an environment of deep emotional solitude. It meant doing your homework at the kitchen table with only the hum of the refrigerator for company. It meant learning to feed yourself, perhaps pulling a foil-wrapped TV dinner from the freezer, or scavenging the pantry because no one was coming home to cook a warm meal for you. If the VCR or the microwave clock flashed 12 o'clock, you were the one who figured out how to fix it. You essentially saved your parents from their own technological confusion. You rode your bike without a helmet until the streetlights came on, and drank directly from the garden hose if you got thirsty. You roamed your neighborhood entirely without adult supervision. It looked like profound, enviable freedom to the outside world, but beneath that feral independence was a quiet necessity to survive. No adult was there to buffer the harshness of the world. You were the designated problem solver, often running a household and commanding younger siblings by age 12. You were a child, yet you were asked to carry the cognitive and emotional load of a fully grown adult. Psychologists call this instrumental parentification, where a child takes on caregiving tasks like cooking, cleaning, and protecting siblings, while this fostered incredible competence and self-reliance. It came at a steep emotional cost. You learned very early on that the only person who was ever going to save you was yourself. Living in a high-contingency environment, your brain literally rewired itself to think 3 steps ahead. Your mind became an expert at running constant simulations of what could go wrong, cultivating a state of hypervigilance. What the adults did not see was the underlying panic and stress that came with having to just figure things out. Every time you handled a crisis alone, your stress response system lit up. Cortisol and adrenaline flooded your small body over time. That chronic activation rewired your nervous system, making anxiety and exhaustion your baseline. You developed a fierce, impenetrable self-reliance to mask the vulnerability. You shrugged off the silence. You wore your extreme self-sufficiency like a badge of honor. Taught that expressing your feelings was a sign of weakness, you became the tough one, the one who never complained. Your independence became your protective armor. But that armor was incredibly heavy, and the survival tactics you perfected as a child didn't stay in the 1980s. They followed you into adulthood, shaping every relationship, every career choice, and every internal battle you face in Part 2. We will explore how that feral childhood armor transformed into the burnout-driven reality of the modern Gen X woman, and why asking for help still feels like a life-or-death surrender. Stay tuned. You survived the profound silence of the 1980s. You thought that when you finally grew up, you would leave that heavy brass key and the empty house it opened far behind you. But you did not leave it behind, you swallowed it. That childhood necessity of complete self-reliance did not just shape your youth, it became the fundamental operating system for your entire adult life, today. You are the woman who handles everything. You are the fixer, the planner. The one who never drops the ball, but beneath that flawless exterior of extreme competence. You are entirely exhausted. As you transitioned from that feral, unsupervised childhood into adulthood, the rules of the game changed, but your survival strategy remained exactly the same. You absorbed the distorted cultural message that you could have it all, the corporate career, the perfectly managed household, and that you had to do it alone. You held on tight to your extreme self-reliance because needing someone else felt far too dangerous. Vulnerability was a luxury you were never afforded, so you built an impenetrable fortress of hyper-independence, but this fortress comes with a devastating biological cost. What people around you do not see is the underlying panic that fuels your endless productivity. When you refuse to ask for help, your brain does not perceive independence. It perceives a life or death threat. Every single time you say, "I will just handle it myself," your stress response system lights up like a pinball machine. Your body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, keeping your nervous system in a chronic, unrelenting state of hypervigilance. Your body believes you are saving your tribe from a predator, when in reality, you are just saving everyone else from their own lack of planning. This is not true success, it is profound burnout masquerading as extreme competence, and now you find yourself at the epicenter of the most demanding phase of your life. You are the forgotten middle child of generations. You are the sandwich generation, caught in the crushing vice grip of caring for aging parents while simultaneously supporting adult children. You are giving your children the very guardrails and supervision that you never had, instinctively trying to ensure they never feel that loneliness. Furthermore, you are acting as a neurological translator, the last generation to know a fully analog world. Despite carrying the heaviest load, you remain utterly silent about your struggles. Asking for help feels like a punishable crime. You were raised on the cultural slogan, "Never let them see you sweat," and you took it as a solemn vow. To ask for help now feels like a life or death surrender, a loss of the control that has kept you safe since you were 10. You embrace solitude not just as a preference, but as a defense mechanism, hiding your profound exhaustion from the world. But internally, you are grappling with a quiet crisis of loneliness, feeling invisible to the very people you spend your life supporting. The armor of the latchkey kid is heavy, and the relentless pressure is beginning to crack the foundation. Your body is keeping the score. In Part 3, we will explore the journey to finally putting down the key. You wake up tired. It is not the kind of fleeting tiredness that a good night's sleep or a strong cup of coffee can fix, but a profound, cellular exhaustion that has settled deep into your bones. For decades, your mind has been writing checks that your body can't cash. You successfully built a flawless, impenetrable fortress of hyper-independence to survive the dark, empty houses of the 1980s. But that exact same protective armor is now slowly crushing you from the inside out. Your body is finally staging a full-scale biological revolt. To understand what is happening inside you, you have to look under the hood of your own nervous system as a latchkey child. Your developing brain was often deprived of the consistent emotional regulation that comes from a present, attuned caregiver. Instead of learning to process stress safely, your nervous system adapted by keeping you in a chronic, unrelenting state of hypervigilance every single time you handled a crisis alone. Your body flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, functioning in life or death emergency mode. Over the years, this rewired your nervous system, turning a cocktail of anxiety, irritability, and fatigue into your normal baseline. You believed this toxic stress was simply what it meant to be a competent woman. You absorbed the perspective that you could do it all alone. But human bodies were never designed to run on emergency generator power for 40 straight years. The biological cost is staggering. Ongoing traumatic stress drastically alters the major organs, the immune system, and the stress response system itself. When you refuse to ask for help, your brain perceives isolation as a threat to survival, continuing to trigger your fight or flight response. Trauma survivors are more likely to suffer from chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and face a higher risk of developing autoimmune diseases. The mysterious physical aches and brain fog are not signs of weakness, they are manifestations of a nervous system that is finally collapsing. This physiological breaking point arrives at the worst moment, midlife. You belong to a demographic facing a silent, unprecedented mental health crisis. Society is quick to dismiss your anxiety as purely hormonal, but blaming it entirely on menopause is a reductive insult to your reality. You are not just dealing with hot flashes. You are dealing with the cumulative, crushing pressure of a lifetime of overfunctioning. You are in Sniper's Alley, the core of the sandwich generation, actively pulled in a dozen different directions every single day. From caring for an aging parent with dementia to supporting adult children. The tsunami of midlife problems is multifaceted and overwhelmingly heavy. You take care of everyone, sacrificing your own needs, to the point where you feel completely invisible and have fundamentally lost yourself. The culture expects you to gracefully transition into the shadows, valuing women only for their youth and fertility. You feel like a failure because you assume everyone else is coping just fine, but they are not. Gen X women are collectively burning out. Your body is forcibly stripping away the hyper-independent armor you constructed in that empty house all those years ago. Your physical collapse is your body's desperate plea for you to stop saving everyone else and lay down the heavy brass key. In Part 4, we will explore the psychology of unlearning survival mode and how to rewire your exhausted nervous system for safety. You can finally learn to ask for help without feeling like you are losing the only resilient identity that has ever kept you safe. You are exhausted, your physical body is actively rebelling against you, and you know deeply that the way you are living is no longer sustainable. But putting down that heavy brass key and stepping out of your lifelong survival mode feels entirely terrifying. For decades, your extreme self-reliance was not just a coping mechanism. It became the defining marker of your identity. To ask for help now feels like a profound betrayal of the only resilient armor that has ever kept you safe. You learned very early on that being the strong one, the one who requires absolutely nothing from anyone else, was your most reliable currency. If you stop being the ultimate fixer and the family shock absorber, you are forced to confront a terrifying question: who are you? As a child of the 1980s, you were subjected to intense emotional parentification, managing the logistical and emotional weather of your household. You were constantly praised for your maturity. And so you internalized a desperate need to be absolutely perfect. You developed a profound fear of failure, believing that if you dropped a single ball, the entire family system would collapse. This extreme self-sufficiency is now actively robbing you of true intimacy in your adult relationships. You have frozen out the opportunity for deep connection because sharing your fears feels like exposing yourself to a life-threatening danger for the modern Gen X woman. Setting a boundary or admitting you cannot do something alone feels like a punishable crime. You implicitly learned that having emotional needs made you a burden, and so you became fiercely protective of your autonomy. When you try to say the word no, your brain does not process it as a healthy choice. It feels like a threat to survival, and learning this feral survival mode requires actively working against your own hardwired biology. Every single time you refuse assistance, your stress response system is activated, flooding your body with cortisol and adrenaline. But the exact inverse is also true. Getting help from others functions as profound nervous system regulation every time you say no, delegate a task, or admit you cannot carry the burden alone. Your body physically interprets that action as safety. The experiment of interdependence requires letting other people step in, which is how your brain fundamentally learns that rest is not dangerous. It will feel uncomfortable at first because your mind has been conditioned to view chronic stress as your normal baseline. You are engaging in the healing of the inner child, offering yourself the compassion and the safety net that you missed as a youth. True independence is not the isolated absence of connection, it is the ability to choose healthy interdependence with absolute confidence. You must learn to slowly dismantle those heavy walls and allow the people around you to see the very real, very tired woman behind the armor. This is how your feral self-reliance finally transforms into profound self-respect. You reclaim your right to simply exist. In Part 5, we will explore the final stage, how to fully integrate your past and step into a new legacy of authentic strength.